Google. Let's go get them again.
Welcome back to another episode of Samplin' Samples. Today we are delving into the brand of Giorgio Armani and of course the code lineup, as you can see beside me here. And honestly, dare I say, code has been surpassed by Stronger With You as the second in command for the line. I know that it's Emporio Armani, technically the lesser line of the Giorgio Armani line. They're all in the same little family. So Acqua di Gio, I believe, is its rightful number one in the men's aisle. Sales-wise, the eyes are on it. Popularity, hype, all that. I don't think we can deny that Acqua di Gio is the bread and butter of the Giorgio Armani line, the Armani line. And then for years it was Code, and Emporio Armani released fragrances and all that, and so did Giorgio Armani, different lines, but they never really hit, and they were looking for this second in command, and Armani Code kind of slotted in as that second in command. The darker version, Acqua di Gio for day, Armani Code for night. Personally, for me, when I first started my journey on YouTube, there's my original Armani Code bottle, and I always felt like it was less than what the marketing stated. I wanted it to be darker. I wanted it to be more of a tux kind of scent profile. I'm not saying you can't wear it with a tux, but I'd wear other stuff. And it was much lighter. I wanted it darker, and it never did. So that's why it doesn't have much of a dent, and this line isn't very popular with me. As you can see, a lot of the stuff over here, probably a lot of Armani Code fanatics would pay me a good pretty penny to get like Armani Code Summer, Armani Code Ultimate, Armani Code Sport, some of the early fragrances, and of course this hype beast right here. So I haven't really, I kind of stopped collecting it, we'll say. So today we're going to be talking about, again, another one from the line that kind of is subpar, we'll say. That didn't sell well. It didn't get the hoopla, and that's why I think Stronger With You as a line kind of surpassed Code as the second in command as far as sales, eyes, hype. Code still gets it, hype and love, but I think it's third in line now. I think Stronger With You has surpassed it. So this one right here is the blue bottle, Code Colonia, and we're gonna see what went wrong here. What happened to this thing? Why was it discontinued so quickly? Well, I think we know why. The brand does that. They do it with their Acqua di Gio line all the time. I don't even know what Armani's doing with that line. Yeah, it's little brother, right? Code under the EDG spotlight. Now, Colonia did have a short-lived moment on the market. I think it got discontinued. It was released in 2007, so it had some years, but I think it got discontinued around circa 2022, like when it really went away. So it took some while. Code to me always felt like a lost cause. When they first introduced Code, I was excited. Okay, the darker piece to go with the summer banger EDG. They can partner up and tackle daytime and nighttime scent profiles. Code never felt like that dressed up evening type scent. It just wasn't dark enough. And honestly, it's been surpassed by Stronger With You line from Emporio Armani in sales and also in popularity, honestly. I think those are the 1-2 now, and now Code's like kind of that third wheel that Armani's like, what are we gonna do with this, honestly? They just hang around. I still think they can revive the line, and we're gonna see. And they've been, steadily re-releasing and like the Eau de Toilette got a facelift. They kind of do what they did with Acqua di Gio, kind of like rebottle it with the same name. We're gonna see today though what happened with Colonia and the fresh version of Code and what it did for me in my small little, the sample's not very small actually. This was like more like a 5 mil, so it had some life to it. So I had a few days with it, of course. So let's go under the hood. Let's take a look at some stats on this one, and let's start moving this review here. Now, it was released back in 2017. The nose behind this is Antoine Maisondieu. Let's take a look at the note breakdown and of course the big notes to my nose before we start delving into it. Notes up top, we have bergamot, mandarin, and pink pepper. So of course we got a citric uplifting start to the fragrance, which I would assume from a Colonia, right? Pink pepper, of course, can have rosy facets. It can have spicy facets. We'll see what we get out of that. In the mid, we have orange blossom, clary sage, and the mill salicylate, an IFF compound. So, okay, they put that in the Fragrantica, as usually that doesn't happen. So it's kind of weird to kind of see that. So we got some floral, some aromatics, right? And in the base, we have tonka bean. I think a pillar in this fragrance, a pillar in, of course, Armani Code. And we have, of course, amber wood and heliotrope. So the big notes to me would have to be the tonka bean, the heliotrope, and the clary sage. So you're gonna see a lot of that, you know, the heliotrope with its powdery almond aspects. You're gonna see that tonka bean, which also does powdery and almond aspects, but also vanillic aspects. And of course that clary sage with its aromatic properties. So I'm wearing a Code Colonia today, right now, is my set of the day, but I'm going to basically, it's not the last dab because it has an atomizer, but let's remind me of this intro and see what we get. Launching. We lost the cap, didn't go under the door, I don't get an extra 2 points. And there's the strip that I've been using while testing. So Code Colonia, straight away, you know, right off the bat, surprised me. Either I was expecting a Colonia, which is more of a citrus herbal thing, you know, a classic Italian style. Or, as per the bottle, the look of the bottle, I was half expecting a bluey. I was like, oh boy, right? And rightfully discontinued if it's a bluey. None of the above. More classic Italian than bluey, right? But I get neither, which was surprising. And it's kind of right in the middle of both, right? It's actually, and it's funny, like when you go, like as a fragrance reviewer, you can kind of go, like I've been around the block, right? I've been a fragrance reviewer for a long time. You can kind of see the stages of these, let's say, quote unquote, freshies, where it went, you know, where are we gonna go, right? You know, the sport versions. And then there was the cologne versions where this kind of belongs, is that they, you know, these brands, they use their top sellers and the names, right? Name alone sometimes, and just kind of do what's popular, right? In the fresh side, right? You got to have kind of some freshies. And I quite like this, but it's a different, right? The freshies of these days, it's just a big contrast. Like I think 10 years ago, I would look at this, you know, and I'd be like, it's like what it is, right? Like I'm thinking like Jean-Paul Gaultier, like Pai. Like that's where it's kind of going. Kind of like Jean, which is like, right? But it's much better than what we're smelling these days as the freshies, right? The heavily sweet ambroxan kind of things. So my appreciation for this fragrance, actually when I smelt it, I'm like, this is kind of like a nice change of designer summer. It's quite nice with its clean aspects. There's some citruses and some watery tones here with some tonka sweetness, which was the first note I detected right away. I was like, oh, okay. And you're gonna kind of like trying to mesh this together to make a freshie. Sometimes doesn't really work. As for the citrus, I do get the 1-2 punch of the mandarin and the bergamot. They're both there. They work well together, of course. There's no fireworks here on either note with the citruses. As far as authenticity goes, I wouldn't say this is like, oh, you gotta smell this bergamot. It's generic. It just works, right? It doesn't make the fragrance any better, right? As far as score goes. And saying, oh, like the mandarin's really good in here, or like it really gives it its punch, but it's not, you know, making it better, but it's not making it worse either. It's just standard. So it just works. The one thing I did notice with the opening of this one, it's not aquatic per se, right? You don't want it to go closer to Acqua di Gio because you don't want to start stealing sales from that big boy. It felt more airy than aquatic to me. It has some clean aspects, of course. and some thin air pockets too throughout the scent to make it thin as a fragrance. So I kind of enjoyed that portion of it, that I felt like there was room to put things in there, like more materials, more notes, you know, to make it thicker, but they made it thinner, which of course Colonia, you would assume that that's what they're going to do. But I really enjoyed that portion of it, that it was simplicity at its, you know, better way. You can tell that this is going to go more into this citrus aromatic field with the code DNA lingering through. I think that's where I would kind of slot this thing in. It still has that code DNA, that tonka bean kind of feel. You know, it's losing a lot of its parts, but there's a citrus aromatic piece to this fragrance. I felt the pink pepper and orange blossom had very minor roles in this fragrance, but do make a small impact in the overall scent profile. Now, moving into the mid, the citruses burn off, and then the scent turns to an aromatic lavender-like clean scent profile. So it has a major player in this release. Think dryer sheets. It is in that kind of wheelhouse. And this is really where this reminded me a lot of like a mishmash of Armani Code meets Jean-Paul Gaultier Le Male Pai Pai edition, most notably around this circa these years. It kind of felt like that was the mishmash I was getting, with the lavender, the freshness with the sweetness. In this case, of course, the sweetness is tonka. It really went into that direction. And I have to revisit, like I do have my Jean-Paul Gaultier Pai Pai somewhere, summer edition, where they kind of went away with those. Like they kind of went into this, Le Beau is kind of like the summer edition of Le Male, like they kind of rebranched it. They make more money that way. You know, summer editions are hit and miss, but Le Beau is kind of like, is almost like a beast of its own. So it kind of went into that direction. So they kind of went away from this really light, fresh, with a high lavender note. So that's where it went. The Clary Sage does give its familiar sweet herbal touches as well in this mid. You get a bit of the amber woods here, but they felt turned down quite a bit. The amber woods are probably that airy disposition that I felt in the opening, less aquatic but more fresh. That's how I felt. The tonka takes a step up as far as the volume goes here in the back end, and is the only real big player left from the code DNA. At times, I almost felt like the cola vibe of Armani Code was there, as the tonka kind of felt a little toasted here. So it's a big change from the Quinton Bish tonka bean I've been experiencing lately that has no personality. It's just a vanilla fog. Just that little bit of personality that I got from this really made me appreciate this and appreciate like how simple these fragrances were back then, these summer editions where it's not going to get like a 10 out of 10 out of me, but I enjoyed it enough that it's going to get a mid score. It's not like the score would change if I reviewed it in 2015 versus now. It's still going to get kind of like a mid review, but it's a lot better than what I've been smelling lately from the Bish tonka beans that I've been getting lately. And I know it's not the best quality tonka, but it really makes a difference when you're smelling 2-3 dimensional tonka bean at least, right? Yeah, I'm not getting no cherry nuance, which is fine. At least give me a little bit of something. You also do get a little bit of that powdery aspect back here from the heliotrope as well, or the tonka, depending. Tomato, but you do get a little bit of that. The tonka and heliotrope kind of overlap each other in many nuances, including the vanillic touches, the almond touches, and the powdery nuances. So I could name off either or, and yeah, you're gonna get that. Here it's mostly powder that I get from the heliotrope, and it's usually a balm on my skin, heliotrope powder, but it's not here. It was actually tastefully done, which I kind of like, that the volumes kind of get turned down. And that's why I kind of compare this to the current Quinton Bish Summer Edition fragrances, where I really can't stand it because the volume of the vanilla is way too high. It's not a summer edition anymore. It's too dense, especially in the dry down. Yeah, you could put like really, watery aspects up top, but once you start putting a dense vanilla fog in the back end, kind of defeats the purpose of it being a summer edition, and in my opinion, too much depth. Overall, my experience with Colonia was actually not too bad. Colonia didn't go where I thought it was going to go. I was thinking, perhaps a daytime cologne version, but it's more of a daytime sweet, clean thing. I do appreciate it didn't go heavy bluey, like heavy ambroxan like a blue. So thank you Armani for that. I think it's tastefully done for a designer fresh release. Yeah. Also in the name, when you're thinking Colonia, for me personally, Acqua di Parma, right? Colonia. Classic Italian name, right? For a cologne version, citrus, heavy herbal tendencies, aromatics. Yeah, there's some aromatics in here. But, when I start thinking classic Italian Colonia, you'd think straight up summer. And, my time with this, I didn't feel that way. It's more of a kind of like a spring day with a little bit of wind, because it has a little bit of density to it, even though there's some air pockets. I felt it's better suited for that. But that's my thoughts. Like, I'm not a big fan of these sweet summer edition fragrances where, you got like heavy lavender and you're putting citruses in it, and it's just, the sweetness kind of denses it up a little bit, clogs it up a bit. I think they tastefully did it right here, but I still wouldn't be my choice. I kind of really like thinner fragrances personally than this for a summer high heat kind of day. This is not for that. Now let's get into seasons, day, night, versatility, and performance. And of course my final thoughts in a score, because I don't own the bottle. Seasons, again, I said it, spring. I think spring's best for it. I think the aromatics in here, and I did wear it during a day here that it was actually, we had a little bit of rain, and that's why I had like this aha moment with it. And we had some warmer days with it, and I'm not saying it did bad, but I felt like it shined more in that rainy day. So spring, fall, like the tweeners, but mostly better in a cooler environment with sun and beaming on you. Like almost like when it rained, it stops raining, but and then you're walking out and the sun's on you, but it's still, kind of windy. This is where this thing would kind of shine. Mid-spring season, early fall season, when it's first starting to kind of, get a little bit more wind, but you're still getting a lot of sun. Those pieces, those seasons, it would be perfectly fine. It would be great, even though it's obviously a discontinued product. Day or night, I feel like this is based more of a day. I don't see it as again, summer nights, it would be, better than the high beaming heat. I think it would do better there, but I feel like it's lacking that personality. That Tonka doesn't, even though it has a little bit of personality, I don't know. I feel like I could probably wear Code more of a spring night than Colonia. Versatility, above average. I think that this thing has been stripped down quite a bit from the original Code, but tastefully done, where the versatility of it is going to go a little higher. You could dress this one up with like a pale colored suit during the day, right? You're going somewhere, formal enough. You wouldn't be out of place wearing this thing. Maybe a little childish depending on your age range and things like that. But if you're in your like mid-20s, high 20s, I don't see any reason you could probably dress this one up and down at the same time. Performance was actually okay. Again, what are you expecting from a summer edition, quote unquote? Longevity was 5 to 7 hours, which is actually pretty good for quote unquote a summer edition fragrance. I've had some of these that are on fumes at 5. This thing, even though not that much bigger, like when I slot something in at 3 to 5, it means 5, it's done. She's done. This one at least has a couple more hours with it. So 5 to 7, which is quite decent. It's not great, but it's decent. Projection is below average. So When wearing this, and I wore it for at least one warm day and one kind of rainy day, it didn't project. I was very below average. Unfortunately, on this thing, people needed to come much closer to me than I wanted to, so below average. So my final thoughts on Code Colonia, which I had this sample for years now. I was always intrigued on this one, not intrigued enough to blind buy it, or, you know, I kind of gave up on the Armani Code line, as you can see. My final thoughts are, this isn't your standard cologne from an Italian house. You know, the standard citrus and herbal components, those aren't here. You faintly get a bit of Code here, but it's missing many key pieces that made Code what it is. I think some of the more interesting parts of Code are not here. It's not groundbreaking by any means, but I do see its use after the gym, office wear. This one never got the hype of other Code releases, never got the love, got discontinued, got forgotten by the fragrance community. Sadly, I was late on this one. I wouldn't mind getting a bottle of this, actually. That's where I am with this release. And I might slot it a little higher than you would assume from me. And again, I'm a designer head through and through. If you're gonna do like a half decent designer fragrance, I'll give it its props. I'll give it its flowers. And I think this deserved more love than it should have in the fragrance community, honestly. We're a copycat world as fragrance community, right? Once a lot of people pan something, everybody kind of copies and goes, yeah, this is not good. I don't care, like it's 2025 now, nobody's reviewing this, I don't care. I'll tell you how it is. I think this is actually a solid Code summer flanker. And if I could find a bottle, I'm not spending $100+ for this, 200, 300, forget about it, it's discontinued. So there is going to be that kind of price gouging on eBay, stuff like that. But, you know, at its lower form, you know, a small bottle of this probably at a discounter, like back then when it was discontinued, just started getting discontinued, you could probably find this around, like Armani's are kind of, they're not going to go in the bargain bin. They're too good for that. So you're looking at probably around 60, 70 for a bottle of this. I wouldn't mind at that price point. I wouldn't mind. So if I had to give it a score currently out of 10, and hey, a lot of 2025 releases, and I hate like you know, a lot of people that watch all my videos, you know, you're gonna see me talking about all these 2025 releases that are getting 2s and 3s on my channel. Yeah. And I'm not saying this is an all-star, but I'm gonna give this a very solid score of a 7 out of 10. I think it's an interesting concept for the Armani Code line, and I think they did well with it. So I'm gonna give it its flowers. You know, it's not gonna go any higher than that. It's like bottle worthy for me is 8 to 10. So I did say I would want a bottle, but not for retail, not for inflated price. I would get it at its bargain bin price of $60 to $70 for a smaller bottle, give or take a partial, right? If I see it at a Facebook group and I'm like, oh, someone's selling Colonia, like their partial bottle, and they're selling for $60, and I want something else from that buyer, I think I would just throw it in. Like, it's one of those throw-ins. I think that's good enough for that and kind of add to my collection. But other than that, the Code DNA never really blew me away. And that's kind of where they slot in. So a good Armani Code will get like an 8 or even a 9 for a great one. But yeah, this one is 7, which is kind of a decent score. Now that's my take. I'd love to see yours in the comments below. Good, bad, and the ugly, right? You can highly disagree with me. You can go with the rest of the group. How boring is that? But you can. You can say this is a flop. That's why it's discontinued. And probably have a point. Nobody bought it. You could say it's a mid, which is like a 5, right? Or you're underselling it. It's a 9 or a 10. It's a great Armani Code release. I don't think I'd be going that far. I think 7 or 6 would be probably a good classification of a score for this fragrance. And I was kind of battling against that, but I liked it. The more I wore it, the more that score went up. Like, I think it was around 6 when I was wearing it. Like the first wearing, I classified it as a 6, but it's a culmination of what I feel as scores after I'm done reviewing a fragrance, which a 7 is where I stopped it with. And as always, a great pour fragrance will make a lasting impression. Choose your scent wisely. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Have a good one.